Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday. Well, guess what? I am back. We are reading the Bible. I have 7 different versions of the Bible. This is the very first time I'm reading it cover to cover, and this has been an incredible journey. I'm only on Genesis. We're going to start Genesis 7 today, but so far, let me just do a recap of our last show. Just a couple of things that we had questions on that I had to look up later. So one of the things we talked about was that Noah's Ark was created from gopher wood. Now, I had no idea what gopher wood, so of course I look it up. And they're actually uncertain what gopher wood is. Is it an actual type of wood, or is it a construction style of the wood? So many times, depending on the different version, it'll either say gopher wood or it'll say cypress wood. Just a little bit of information. There happens to be a tree in Florida that is nicknamed the gopher tree, and that is the Torreya taxifolia. That is only found in Florida, which makes a little conspiracy theory interesting, whether that the original biblical landmarks were actually in the United States. I don't believe that, but there is a theory that that is a possibility. So that would make sense that Florida has a tree that was mentioned in the Bible. I don't necessarily believe that theory, but I do believe that perhaps this might be an extinct tree, or it might be a style of how they do it, because they talked about pitch, they talked about square beams, and they talked about cypress when building the ark. The other question was, I had no idea how big a cubit was. So this whole time they're talking about that Noah's Ark was 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits. And I'm thinking to myself, how big is that? And they also made mention that the floodwaters was 15 cubits, which don't make sense to me when you're actually looking at the height, because they did say that the floods was way above the mountains as well. So, hello, welcome to the show. So it doesn't make sense on the size of the flood, because I'm going to go into the assumption that it covered everything, including the mountains, because it talked about covering absolutely everything, but that would be a lot higher than 15 cubits. So I was a little confused about that particular number in the Bible, but when we want to do it in feet, it would be approximately, the ark was 510 feet by 85 foot wide by 51 feet tall. So at least that gives a perspective of, okay, what's a cubit? And they did define cubits as the length from to your forearm. So that's how they define it. So those were the questions that I asked from the last show. The final thing, which I actually did a video on this morning, and I'm going to continue it because I have a problem with the method of honorifics in the Bible. And I already spoke to a couple of people. The people I speak to are very religious Bible people. They completely will say to me, you're wrong, or they're saying, you're reading it incorrectly. God is everything. From what I'm reading in just the first 6 chapters, they use honorifics. They use God, Lord. Now, yes, okay, those are all the different names of God. However, when they start describing how each of these, I'll just say beings for the time being, that each of these names and beings interact and how they speak and what their thoughts are, it's starting to make me believe that maybe God is a different entity from the Lord God, which is a different entity from the Lord. And the reason I'm doing that is I've got my little thing, and I could actually read this at some point. I'm not going to read it now because I want to see how in-depth the Bible really goes. And I mean, I'm literally, and just to give an example, like for example, God was the one that made the heavens and earth, but the Lord is the one that made the plants, the trees, the beasts, the fowl. He made man, and Lord was the one that cursed the ground, curses Cain, reduces life of man. So, I mean, each one of them did a different deed. they had like a different attitude. And at one point, and I highlighted in chapter 6, if you really read Genesis chapter 6 over and over again, if you think of God versus the Lord in two separate contexts, then it actually is a conversation that God is creating with either a separate entity, or it's more of the line God is creating an internal dialogue in his head. It's a very interesting chapter. I read it a couple of times, but like I said, chapter 6, they use two honorifics. They use God and they use Lord. And while everybody's saying it's supposed to be interchangeable, my question is it actually two separate entities? And hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So we are going to now start on chapter 7 in Genesis. I already did a quick overview of some of the questions that we had the other day. I think there was one more. No, there wasn't any more questions. And we're going to see. We're still on Noah with the great flood. And so far, like I said, I'm keeping in the back of my mind just the possibility that the being called God or entity and the entity called the Lord are two separate beings. So that's just a question I have. I don't have an answer. But like I said, with my chart, when I write down what each entity is being defined as, it's a very, very interesting look if you look at it from 3 different perspectives. All right, so let's go to Genesis chapter 8. So now, like I said, in chapter 6, we were interchanging back and forth between God, Lord, within the same scripture. Now, we're going to get back to God, because it starts off and said, and God remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuage. The waters assuage. I don't know what that means. I'm going to highlight that word. ASSWAGED. If I was immature, I would say, hey, it's assuage. But no, seriously, I don't know what that word is. So I just want to see what the Men's Bible one. This one puts the Bible in layman's terms, and it does appeal to men for men's Bible study groups. So this one's actually interesting. So we're looking at 8:1. It says, but God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. Okay, so is that what assuage means? I didn't know what that word. So assuage would mean receding, the waters going away, the waters. Okay, so that's a word I've never heard of. So I'm going to use the word receding, or I'm just going to say the waters dissipating. Maybe that's another word I could use. But the actual word was assuage. Never heard of that. And that's what I do. I learn new words. Okay, so once again, we're talking about God. So God was the one that created wind. That's important. I'm going to put it on my list. So God made wind after the flood. I actually wrote it down because I started going ahead. So it says, the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heavens was restrained. Okay, so now earlier in chapter 7, they were talking about how the heavens opened up, and that's how the waters from above came down to the earth, and then the fountains opened up from below. So there was a combination of the waters from above and the waters on below combining to create this flood. Now remember, when we were talking about creation in the beginning, God created a firmament, a dome, a protective barrier to protect the earth from the waters above, waters below, which led my question to be, is God actually an entity in water alone? Because when they refer to God, they don't necessarily, in the beginning, they don't necessarily put him as a physical being. He is a spoken, he speaks his commands. He does everything through frequency and sound. So that's something to think about. So my question still is God water? Because is everything else around the earth water? That's a question I have. But let's continue on chapter 8, verse 2. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain for heavens was restrained. So what that means is the heavens closed up, and it no longer rained down that constant rain. It says, the waters returned off from the earth continually, and after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated. So we have a time frame of 150 days. Now, just to go back, that was water receded. I need to look up these numbers because I have a feeling there's a correlation behind what these numbers mean. So basically, we already found out from the previous chapter that the flood occurred when Noah was 600 years old. It was during the second month on the 17th day. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and there was 150 days of the water flooded. So at the 150 day mark, that's when the water finally receded. Okay, so let's keep on going. We're on chapter 8, verse 4. And the ark rested on the 7th month, on the 17th day, upon the mountains of Ararat. So now, once again, we have another location. So the Bible is literally starting to create identifying land masses. So now, I'm going to write this in the corner because we're getting other land masses. We have Mount Ararat. So that's a landmass. And where the ark rested, so the ark landed on the 7th month, 17th day. Okay, now just bear in mind, we had a question way in the beginning involving what is the concept of time and whether the concept of time was different than now. Because God simply defined time as when the morning and evening, he created the morning, he created the evening, the day and night, and that's what determined time along with the seasons. But it didn't necessarily say how long is a day. We define it now as 24 hours a day, 365 days in a year, that sort of thing. But obviously, even in Genesis, there's some sort of time calendar. Is it the same time calendar we use today? The answer is no. There is a belief that back then they used a 13-month calendar as opposed to a 12-month calendar. So it's an interesting little way to look at it as far as when these actually were determined. So let's just keep that in mind. So now, we're doing 8:5. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. Okay, so this, once again, I have a problem with, because they were saying that the flood was 15 cubits high. And that I'm a little confused at, because that's not necessarily as high as a mountain. And that's why I'm wondering why they called it 15 cubits. And a cubit, remember, 1 cubit is length from the elbow to the hand. So it's approximately 18 inches. So that's the approximate is 18 inches. So you would do 18 times 15. And I'm like, that's not a lot of... So I don't know why they say that if it covered mountains as well. If that was the case, then the term mountains in this perspective is not necessarily as high as the mountains we have. Okay? Just to put another theory, because this is very important, and like I said, open your mind to this. We are measuring a cubit from our elbow to our approximately 18 inches. However, the Bible talks about giants. In fact, it even says that the giants were the people that were going to be killed as well. Just put this in perspective. If you have a giant, then it would make sense, if the giant is really tall, that 15 cubits, that would be 15 arm lengths of a giant's elbow to arm, would indeed be the size of a mountain. And that's why I questioned about measurements, because there may be a real possibility that giants were so tall that when you measure a mountain, and I'm thinking of like Mount Everest or something like that, that the measurement of Mount Everest where the water is going so high, it's going above the mountain, then yes, that would make sense from the forearm to the hand, 15 cubits of a giant's measurement. So that's why there was my question about how big a cubit is, because in our terms, it's 18 inches. I don't think a cubit measurement was the same measurement as 18 inches back then. And that would make a really big difference. Okay, so that's something I thought about as well. All right, so we are on chapter 8, verse 5. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. And in the 10th month of the first day were the tops of the mountains seen. So now the water's coming down. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. Okay, and that was one of the requirements, and I just want to... Okay, yes, that was one of the requirements that was made from God, was to put the window in the thing. The Lord didn't say that. God commanded him to do it. So that's just something to bear in mind. And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up off of the earth. So he sent out a raven, then the raven's going back and forth, back and forth. The water's receding, so that's a good thing. Also, he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. Now, I find that interesting because I would have thought that ravens wouldn't be sea-dwelling creatures, like sea-dwelling fowl, because he always talks about the fowl of the air. So the first time, in fact, I didn't even know he sent a raven first. From my knowledge, it was always a dove. You always see that the rainbow with the ark, with the dove, with the little piece of, I guess, palm tree or something coming out of his beak. But first was sent a raven. To look at the dried up earth. And then he set forth a dove. So the second was a dove. And that was to look at the face of the ground. So it's different perspectives. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Don't forget, double tap if you're in the thing. If you have any questions, throw it in the chat. We would love to talk and discuss what's going on. Okay, so now we have a raven, we have a dove. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. And she was returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth in his hand and took her and pulled her into him into the ark. Okay, couple of things. Gender. Let's talk about gender for a second. God commanded him that he wanted 2 of every creature, 1 male, 1 female. So I find it interesting that the dove happened to be female that was sent out. But the dove, when she went out, she couldn't find that all the waters have receded. So at this time, there was still a lot of water on the ground. He pulled her back into the ark. And he stayed another 7 days, and again he set forth the dove. The dove came to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth, okay, that's what it is, an olive. I said palm. And lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf that plucked it off. So what that means is she obviously found a tree that was low, so that would mean that the waters receded high from the mountains, receded completely low. So he did send out the second time. So the second time he sent out the dove, brought out an olive branch. Okay. And he stayed yet another 7 days and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him anymore. So that means I didn't know that. So the third time he sent it out. Okay, so that was first. Second, third time the dove went missing. So dove went missing. Bye-bye. No more dove. I didn't know that. I mean, like I said, from my remembrance of what they tell me, I always had the idea, it's like, okay, yeah, he sent forth the dove, came back with the olive branch, everything going. He sent it out a third time, she went missing. Poor little dovey. Okay. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from the earth. 601st year. Okay, let me write that down. So 601st year, in the first month, in the first day of the month. Okay. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and lo and behold, the face of the ground was dry. Okay, so now this is interesting. So originally, he covered the outside and inside with pitch, and pitch being a black tar. So is that what he's talking about? He removed the covering, removing the pitch from the ark? Good question, I don't know, but he removed covering from the ark. I'm going to assume that that is the pitch, the waterproof covering. Okay. And we're on chapter 8, verse 14. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. And God spoke unto Noah. Okay, so no, God is speaking to Noah this time. I want to see if this is important, because remember, earlier it was interchanging between God and Lord, which I'm insisting is now two separate people. But let's see if there's an interchange between God and Lord again. So now God is speaking. So God spoke to Noah, go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives of thee. So basically he's saying everybody who was in the ark. Originally there was 8 people in the ark, so he's saying bring forth all 8 people to me. So that's what God is saying. And then he says, bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl, of cattle, and every creeping thing that creep onto the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. So now he's saying basically, come out of the ark, bring your whole family, and bring all those animals that we got together, bring them out, and let them multiply freely. Because they're going to multiply because there was one male and one female of every species. Okay, so that makes sense. Noah went forth with his sons, and his wife, and his son's wife with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth on the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. So they're leaving the ark. Here's where there's that word change. So God gave him a command, exit, bring everybody out. Here's where the word changes. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord. Now, remember my question from the previous chapter. It sounded like to me that God and Lord are two different beings, two different people. And I'm seeing it once again in chapter 8. So God was the one that spoke to Noah to bring everybody forth. But Noah did not build an altar for God. He built an altar for Lord. Okay? Like I said, everybody's telling me it's the same thing. But it doesn't make sense to me why they keep interchanging it. And let's just see if there is a continuation with the idea that the Lord and the God are two separate beings. All right. So Noah built an altar unto the Lord and took every clean beast and every clean fowl and offered burnt offerings to the altar. Now, this is important because I'm going to go back to the previous chapter and I want to highlight this because I think this is important. In the previous chapter where I said God and Lord were saying two different things, God was the one that commanded Noah to get 2 of every animal, 1 male, 1 female on the ark. That's not what the Lord told him. The Lord actually said something else. The Lord told him that he wants 7 pairs of clean beast and 2 pairs of unclean beast. So that's a different set of animals. You have God saying, just bring 1 male, 1 female, a pair of every single, 2 pairs of every, 2 of every single animal. Whereas the Lord is saying, I want 7 pairs of these animals, which didn't make sense to me because, okay, is he counting 1 pair as 2 people? Or is he counting 7 as each individual? Because then there would be 1 extra or 1 missing. Noah didn't obey the Lord. Noah obeyed what God said. That's if it's two separate people. If it's the same person, then to me, that's God in his mind, confused, going back and forth. Okay, do I want him to send 2 of each creature, or do I want him to send 7 of each creature with 2 pairs of clean? I'm sorry, 7 pairs of clean, 2 pairs of dirty. So that's where my question is. Is it an internal dialogue of God, or is the God and Lord 2 separate beings? Keep that in mind. So now, once again, we're changing. So let's go back to this. It said, and Noah built an altar unto the Lord. So he built an altar on the Lord and took every clean beast and every clean fowl and offered it as burnt offerings, which that's what the Lord wanted. The Lord wanted a differentiation between clean and dirty, or unclean, I should say, not dirty, clean and unclean. So he offered him as a gift the clean beast. Okay, let's go on. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. Okay, so now remember what the Lord did. We're talking about Lord, we're not talking about God. Lord put a curse on man directly after the point Adam and Eve ate of the fruit. God was the one that created the heavens and the earth. But then when they get to the point of being in the garden, they're not talking to the Lord. They weren't necessarily talking to God. Okay, so now they're talking to the Lord. And the Lord is saying, when he was in the garden directly after the bite of the forbidden fruit, that was when the Lord cursed the serpent from upright position to a belly down position. So the serpent now became a snake. And the second thing he did was he cursed Adam and Eve that they no longer can receive substance or food from the trees and seeds. They had to reduce themselves down to the earth and make their food from the earth. To go a little further, Cain was the one that was the earth tiller, and he was the unfavored son, and he had the jealousy with Abel, who Abel was the sheep herder. So that's just a little interesting little tidbit in regards to the Lord. The Lord was the one that cursed. So in this, the Lord is saying, I will not curse the ground again. He's not going to curse the ground again. He's going to leave it the way it is. And he says, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from youth. So what he's saying is that from birth, men are born evil from the start. They have evil in their heart. I guess that's where original sin comes in. That's where the idea that you're born in sin. And he says, neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. So they're almost, I feel like there's, I'm going to say, a regret, sorrow. He took his creation, he destroyed his creation, and now he's saying, I will never do this again. I'm not going to destroy ever again. I don't know if that's the case. I'm going to keep reading. Like I said, I'm just reading this word for word. So let's see what's said. While the earth remained, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Okay, so what he's saying is, he's like, okay, I already did my destruction. I destroyed everything, but from this point on, I'm not going to smite thee again. I am going to continue on with that time frame, day, night, seasons changing, hot, cold, this and that. Now, this may be an interesting point, and I'm going to write that down. So this is Genesis 8:22. The question I have is, and this goes back to the question of time, is from this point on, did the concept of time change between night and day? Because before this point, night and day was X amount of time frame, and people were living an average of 900 years. I say average because they literally tell you when each person passed away. Just to give you an example, you had Enos with 807, Calian was 910, Jared was 962, Methuselah was 969, Lamech started to reduce the age 770 years. Enoch, which I'm going to keep that as mine because I'm curious what happens with Enoch. I do not know there is the book of Enoch, which was taken out, but I want to know what happened to Enoch, because as of right now, the only thing we know what happened to Enoch is that when Enoch was 365, which is interesting because that's 1 year, 365 years old, he was taken by God and disappeared. It doesn't say he was killed. All he simply said was that God took Enoch, made him disappear. And I preface the word God because God was the one that took him, not Lord, God. So like I said, the Bible to me is starting to use honorifics, which is making me believe if these titles are different entities. We'll go on. I don't know the answer. So the question I had with this is, did time change since the flood? Since after the flood? Meaning the measurement of days and nights. So I'm going to write that down. We'll see if it comes up later on in the thing. So that was chapter 8. Now let's go to chapter 9. And I'll put that in chapter 9. Okay. Now we're talking about God again. So let's see if it goes back and forth between God and Lord. But we'll see. It says, "And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth." Okay, so I'm going to write that down. So God was the one that blessed his sons. Okay. He was the one that said, "Be fruitful." I'm writing this down for a very specific reason. Hello, JLA. Welcome to the show. And hello, everybody. Don't forget, double tap, say hello, give some love. So God blessed Noah and his sons. Now, here's another question, and I always thought about this. What do they necessarily mean when they say someone blesses you? In biblical sense and in the sense of what God does. If God blesses you, is that merely an emotional feeling, like I'm proud of you, I bless you, I'm so glad, I'm happy for you, a compliment? Like, is that what blessed means? Is blessed a specific action? It's like, I'm blessing you, so he's like giving a power of energy to them or something like that, which is going to cause them to... Another interpretation, I actually heard this, it could be true, it could not, is blessing the idea similar to like Braveheart, where the king came to bless the marriage, and what he's actually doing is to ensure that the daughters and children have a better chance of impregnation. Is he blessing them in that way with... I don't know. Oh, you need to go? Thank you so much. I will be on every day. I try to do a little bit each day. If not, my reruns are on YouTube. So I take these lives, I put it right on YouTube. But thank you so much for being here. I really enjoy it. So I always had that question. I'm going to write that down. What does it mean when God blesses you? And I mean, I don't know if it ever actually defines that. Maybe that's your own individual... I mean, if you're being blessed by God, what does that mean to you? You can put it in the chat. But I want to know, what do they mean when God blesses you in the Bible? So that was chapter 9, verse 1, and now we're going to 2. And it says, "And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all moveth upon the earth, upon the fishes of the sea, into your hand they were delivered." Okay, now, here's an interesting thing. And I am going to have to look back. I'm going to write that question down too. In all of the previous mentions, and I got to look this back, they always talked about cattle. They talked about the fowl of the air. They talked about the creatures that crawl. I don't remember them saying anything about fishes in the sea. They did make a reference to great whales, which I definitely highlighted. So they said that God created great whales, and I said to myself, "Great! Why are they so honed in on great whales?" Which we sort of had a discussion in regards to great whales possibly being another species, another genealogy of beings. And that's why they're held in such reverence in the Bible, because they are actually dwellers of the sea, the gods of the sea, something like that. I mean, I'm probably reaching here, but this is the first time we'll talk about fishes, because technically in the ark, I know it's a moot point because it's a flood, he didn't bring any fishes in the ark. But that would make sense because obviously while they're destroying mankind and everything that breathe, fishes breathe underwater, so don't need the breath of the air. So that might make sense but this is the first time we're talking about fishes of the sea. So it's like God destroyed all living things, but there were still fish and they were thriving. So that's just something to think about too. So God blessed Noah and his family and said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. Okay, so that's creating a hierarchy, isn't it? Because now, originally they wanted man to have dominion over everything, being in control. Now they're saying that not necessarily you're in control, but the beasts are now going to fear you. They're going to fear and dread you. So now that's an interesting thing, because up until this point, they didn't necessarily eat meat, and I could be wrong. In the Garden of Eden, they were definitely vegetarian, because God said that He only created fruit of the trees to nourish on. You're nourishing on the fruit. When they ate of the forbidden knowledge, that's when the Lord cursed them that they have to eat of the ground. But I don't think from this point on did they ever eat any animals. But I could be wrong. There's probably stuff in between. But this is the first time that they say that the animals are going to fear and dread man. Now, why would they do that? They would fear and dread if they are now being consumed and being eaten. So this might be, so Noah, the flood, might have been the occurrence where we become carnivores as opposed to herbivores. Carnivores. Okay, I'm writing that down. I want to see if that's the case. Okay, so God blessed Noah and sons. We got that. Okay. Then it goes, chapter 9:3. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Okay, I got ahead of myself. Sorry, guys. So every living thing that shall be meat for you, even as the green herb, have I given you all things. Okay, so yeah, I summarized it. See, that's what happens when you don't read ahead. I am literally reading this for the very first time. I'm taking line by line, so I just answered my own question. So the answer is yes. At the point of the flood, after the flood, this is the first time they are consuming meat. So they are consuming meat where the animals become food. And this was after they destroyed everything. So now you only have 2 of each animals which need to procreate. But now at this point, they're going to start eating meat. Okay. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, ye shall not eat. Okay, so I'm assuming that's cannibalism, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, ye shall not eat. Let me just question cannibalism. I'm going to check the other Bible, which they cannot eat. Okay, so no flesh of life and no blood. That is a very, very interesting thing. I'm just going to jump ahead for a minute from what I know. God is commanding that you cannot eat of the flesh or the blood, but isn't that what they had during the Last Supper, where the communion? So that's just something I'm going to keep in my mind later. I just want to check the Men's Bible. That was chapter 9, verse 4. I want to make sure they're talking about cannibalism. I'm not too sure. Okay, so it says, oh, this is a different take on it. It says, you shall never eat any meat that still has life blood in it. Okay. Now, that will go, okay, so that doesn't bring the idea of, well, maybe it does cannibalism, But that also brings in the idea of kosher. Because, okay, in the Judaic belief of kosher, there's a very special way on how you prepare the meat and how it's blessed by the rabbi, where how they drain the blood. They got to turn the animal upside down and drain the blood, that the blood doesn't go. So that might be what they're talking about is kosher. I was taking it at first as cannibalism, that you don't want to eat the flesh of another person, but they're talking about you're not going to eat flesh which still has living blood in it. So I'm going to say the creation of kosher, of the kosher philosophy, kosher ideals. It may or may not, I don't know. But now, like I said, this is the first time you're going from an herbivore where they only ate the fruits and vegetables of the earth, and now they're actually allowed to eat meat as per God. So God is the one that's allowing them to eat meat. God eating meat. Okay. This is important because remember, guys, I do have this theory that when the Bible refers to God and Lord, and I'm writing it down each time there's a difference, that God and Lord have very different opposing views on a lot of these things. And for some reason, the Bible constantly first says God, then says Lord. It says God, then Lord. And I think that's going to mean something. So let's go on. It says, and surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast I will require it, and at the hand of every man, at the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of a man. Okay, what is he talking about? Hi, I'm the person from yesterday that was in your live. Oh, hello, Gabs. Welcome back. I'm glad you're back. So now the question is, what are they talking about? You have to kill another man? I'm gonna compare it to the other Bibles. Let me just read that one more time, because that's, and surely your blood of your lives will I require, and at the hand of every beast I will require it, and at the hand of every man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of a man. Okay, that's chapter 9, verse 6. Let me see in layman's terms what they say. Okay, if anyone takes a human life, that person's life will also be taken by human hands. For God made human beings in his own image. Oh, I'm sorry. I read the next verse. Verse 5. I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. If a wild animal kills a person, it must die. And anyone who murders a fellow man must die. Okay, so that is interesting. Okay, so now, hold on. He's giving them the option of eating meat. But the rule is you cannot eat the meat of living blood. But now he's saying that if you take the hand, you will die too. So how? Oh, what am I reading? I am reading Genesis chapter 9, verse 4 and 5. Okay, so Genesis 9, 4, and 5. Here's where I'm having the trouble with. Because like we're saying, this is the first time God is allowing man to have meat. And he's explaining what the parameters of, because God does explain how they're allowed to eat it. I'm getting confused with chapter 5 because at first I thought they were talking cannibalism. Yes, I'm reading the Bible. At first I thought they were talking cannibalism. But it's saying, and like I said, in Layman's Bible, this particular one is the Men's Layman's Bible, and it's saying that I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. So he's defining murder. If you're going to take a life, so now God is defining murder. So let me write that, defining murder. If a wild animal kills a person, it must die. So now the animals can't. You're going to go eat? Have a good one. Thank you so much. If a wild animal kills a person, it must die. Okay. And anyone who murders a fellow human being must die. Okay, so it says nothing about you killing an animal. It's either if a person takes another person's life, if an animal takes a person's life, or if a person who murders, they must die. Okay, so now we have the concept of murder, of taking one's life, which would mean, based on this, I guess he learned his lesson of Cain and Abel, because with the case of Cain and Abel, when Cain killed Abel, he simply cursed Cain. So he cursed Cain, but in this case, he now saying that if you murder somebody, you must die. Okay, so that's good to know. So they defined murder. Okay, so we were on chapter 9:6 in Genesis. Who shed man's blood, by man shall have his blood shed. For the image of God made he man. Okay, so now once again, we're talking about God. Okay? Remember, I'm having this weird theory that God and Lord are two different things. And if you follow that idea that the God and Lord are two different things, that would mean their lineage is different as well. Because God impregnated one set of people, whereas the Lord impregnated another set of people. So that's just something to bear in mind. So in this case, they're saying, who shed man's blood? By man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. So basically, God is talking about killing and murdering each other. And you, be fruitful, multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply thereof. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you. Okay. This is once again one of those questions I have. I do have this question. So I wanted to make the determination, and this question, because now the word is covenant. So the question I have is blessed versus covenant. And this is coming into play for a very specific reason. Because my first question was, hi, Bree, welcome to the show. I hope you're having fun over there. But anyway, all right, so my question is, originally the question was, what does it mean when God blesses you? And I said, is it simply a compliment, a verbal I bless you, like giving good graces? Is it some sort of physical action, like a power thing? It's like, my hand of God is blessing you. I'm giving you something that's blessing you. Or is it going into the idea of when it comes to reproduction, conceiving, creation, the man and woman? Are they doing like the kings used to do in Braveheart Scotland time, where they would consummate and bless a marriage by being part of the marriage and impregnating so they get the most amount of sperm, potentially, so the woman will get pregnant? That's a thought. It is a thought. I don't know. So now, that's what I'm saying. He's like, I have now established my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off anyone by the waters of the flood, and neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. So he's basically saying, okay, I have established my rules, covenant, my rules. I gave him my rules. These are my rules. I will keep the earth exactly what it is. I'm never going to destroy it or flood it or anything ever again. Your rule is you as a man cannot kill each other. Animals can't kill you. They're going to be put to death. You need to be fruitful and multiply. I'm going to bless you. We still can't define what blessing. And I'm wondering if blessing really means what I said in the terms of sexual procreation ways. Who knows? I don't know. But we're going to see how many times blessing comes up in this and how many times it's related to impregnation. Because so far, every time they said the word bless, it had something to do with child being conceived. Okay, so that's just something to think about. We're still talking to God. I do notice later on we're going to switch to Lord again, but let's talk about God. So it says, God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. Okay, so generation, this is his promise, his pact, his treaty, his rule, his law, whatever you want to call it. His covenant, his word is covenant, but he's saying this is my rules from this point on for every generation. So basically he's giving knowledge, teacher generation to keep going and going. All right. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for token a covenant between you and me and the earth. Okay, bow, I'm going to assume rainbow. If that's, I set my bow in the cloud. Okay, so that's my question. I'm going to write that down. Is he talking about a rainbow in the cloud? As a peace offering, which would make sense, yes, because we're talking directly after Noah's Ark. This is directly after the flood. So yes, he's giving them a rainbow. So that's the bow in the cloud. He's now creating a peace between, it's like his pact. I'm saying I just destroyed the earth. You are now back on my earth. These are the rules. And as a peaceful offering, I'm giving a rainbow in the cloud. I think that's beautiful. It's like a peace tree. He's giving out the rainbow. Okay. And I'm up to chapter 9:14. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. Okay, so he's saying that there'll always be a gift for me when it rains, that there is going to be a rainbow. Speaking of which, this is just an aside, I actually saw a rainbow this morning. We had a really bad storm, which was weird because I've never seen purple and orange lightning before. I've always seen white lightning, but there was like purple and orange lightning. And right after the storm, when the clouds cleared, there was a beautiful rainbow. I took a picture of it, did a video, and I posted it. So yeah, nice little rainbow. Anyway, and it shall come to pass when I bring the cloud over the earth that the bow will be seen in the cloud. That's beautiful. And I will remember my covenant. So I'm going to say covenant in this case does mean like treaty, pact, promise, that sort of thing. Okay? Which is between you and me and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. Okay, so he's making a promise that he's never going to destroy again. From what I know, am I not mistaken, he destroyed a couple of other times? We'll see what happens. I'm going to read those carefully, but did God, I'm going to write that down. Did God go against his own treaty? I don't know. This is probably going to be later on because I had the understanding that there was a lot more destruction coming up later on. Let's see. So did God go against his own promise and treaty? Okay. That's a question. I will stay tuned to find out for more, but I'm going to highlight that question because from what I know of other stories, which from my perspective we haven't gone through yet, he does destroy a couple more times. Well, let's see. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, and I will remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant, which I have established between me and all the flesh upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. Okay, now I'm probably butchering these names. If I'm butchering these names, I'm sorry, my apologies, but I'm just reading however I think they sound. I could be completely saying a different way. Who knows? But these are the three sons of Noah, and them was the whole earth overspread. So yes, so remember there was 8 people in the ark. They had the sons, they had the wives. So they're getting busy and they're going to start procreate. So Noah is a different lineage from everybody else. And if I'm not mistaken, I just want to see who was Noah's. I need to look up who is Noah's father. I want to look that up for. I know it was in the whole who is Noah's father because I want to see what line Noah is from. So that's a question I'm going to look up later. That's my question. Okay. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. Okay, Noah began to be a husbandman. What is a husbandman? I guess it'd just be, I don't know, like, Because at this point he already had sons, so he already did the husbandly duty of procreating. So he has sons, but it's now he's the husbandman. He's going to be sitting at home taking care of the sons, doing the planting, fielding in the vineyard. So he's going to be a worker, I guess, a father figure. And Ho drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. Okay, I'm going to go back for a second. We're on number 920, and I'm going to pull up the men's Bible, because if what I'm thinking is what I'm thinking, we're going to see. And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And Ho drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. All right, so I think we're getting on to some little action of procreation. But let me just see, that was chapter 9, verse 20. After the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground, and he planted a vineyard. One day he drank some wine he had made, and he became drunk and laid naked inside his tent. Okay, yeah, we're going to get some action. So let's see what the Bible talks about the liver. All right. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. So basically he's looking at his father, laughing at him, they're naked, I guess, yeah. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. Okay, so basically this is the whole shame thing, I guess. He got drunk, he's passed out, he's hanging out. The sons come in like, oh my God, Dad, I can't look at this. They're going to take a covering, and they're now going to cover Noah in his drunken state. Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son has done to him. Okay, wait, hold on. Did his son molest him? Did his son have a relationship with him? Hold on. Let's look what this said. After the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground he planted. One day he came home, drunk some wine, and he lay naked inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw that his brother was naked and went outside and told his brothers. Shem and Japheth took a robe, held it over their shoulders, and backed into the tent to cover their father. As they did this, they looked the other way so they would not see him naked. You tell me, guys, are we getting into some man-on-man action? All right, let me go on. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. From this perspective, did his younger son do something to him or just covered him? And he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of all servants shall be unto his brethren." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord God." So now we're talking about Lord God. Okay, so then let me write that down, because Lord God is another interpretation. So this was when, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." So no, and he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, and unto his brethren." And he said, "Blessed." So Noah, who's drunk and naked, wanted him to bless. There's that word blessed. And once again, blessed in context of some sort of intimate setting. So that's why I'm starting to question, what does the word blessed mean? The Lord God, servant of Shem. Okay. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now, once again, he was just talking about Lord God, but God shall enlarge. So now God is in the tent with them. He's enlarging. Am I reading this right? Guys, tell me, am I reading this right? Is this like some homophobic experience between God, Lord God, and the sons? God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem and Canaan, and shall be his servants. Oh my God, am I reading this wrong? Okay. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And of all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Okay, so we come to term that Noah is 950 years old when he dies. I'm writing down these death dates because so far in the concept of time, people are living within the 900-year mark. And that is becoming very important to me right now because I believe that the concept of time back then is different than it is now. But like all these people who are dying are between the ages of like are like in the 900 range. Some of them were different. The only difference is Enoch. We do not know as of yet what happened to Enoch. So I'm hoping later on the story of Enoch comes into play, but we don't know what happened to Enoch, simply that he disappeared on the 365 year of his life because God took him. Doesn't say God killed him or he died or anything like that. He simply disappeared. So I want to know what happens to Enoch. That's something on the back of my mind. So I am going to assume, and I want to look this up. So we're doing chapter 9. We're doing verse 25 to 27. And my question in chapter 9, 25 to 27 is this a birth of homosexual relationships? Is this the first time we're talking about some sort of man-on-man action? Because God enlarged Japheth, and Canaan shall be his servant. So it's creating this, once again, power hierarchy, one's above, one's below, that sort of thing. So we're getting that theme, and they are drunk in a tent, naked. So that is leading me to believe if men are drunk in the tent, naked, and their servant and this and that, and one is making him grow large, that's telling me this is one big orgy. Did I say that? I don't know. Let's go to chapter 10. That's just, we're going to start chapter 10. I think that's a good place to start. Yeah, we're getting into the orgy of the Bible. Did I say that? That's bad. Okay, chapter 10. And we're still on Genesis. Now these are the generations of the son of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after. Okay, so now we're getting into, once again, a lineage family tree. I already said that there appears to be different lineages between God, Lord, Adam's lineage, and now Noah. But everybody else's lineage is wiped away from this point because now it's only the lineage of Noah and his sons. And this is talking, once again, they're using the word generations. So what that means is now lots of time is coming by, lots of stuff is happening. This is stuff over the course of generation after generation. And simply what they're going to say here is the family tree generation. So let me read this carefully. We'll take notes if anything comes back. Excuse my language with these names because I will probably butcher the pronunciation of these names. So we have the sons of Japheth were Gomer and Magog, and Mediah and Javan, and Tubal and Meshech, and Tiras. Okay, so that's one set. The sons of Gomer was Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. Yeah, I'm butchering these names. Sorry, guys. The sons of Javan were Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dotanim. Okay? But these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Okay, so now, this is chapter 10. We're getting the concept of Gentiles. I know that's going to be very important in the future, but I'm just writing that down, Gentiles, because that's the concept we're getting now. The sons of Ham were Cush and Mizraim and Phut and Canaan. The sons of Cush was Saba, Havilah, and Sabatah, and Ramah, and Sabachah. And the sons of Ramah were Sheba and Daha. Yeah, I'm butchering the pronunciation. I am so sorry. Someday I would love somebody to act like I should listen to an audio Bible to actually get the pronunciations on here. So yes, laugh with me if I'm completely pronouncing these wrong. Cush begot Nimrod, and he began to be the mighty one of the earth. Okay, now this is important. I'm gonna write this down. So Cush beget Nimrod, and that's the mighty one on earth. The reason I'm highlighting that, and I'm going to need to find it, but I'm not going to look it up right now, there was a mention of God's lineages, God's son, because it said God's son. In fact, yes, basically I'm paraphrasing, but it was saying how God's sons had interest in the daughters of the earth. And the question I had was, who are God's son? Because what they said was that the offspring, and I'm paraphrasing, the offspring of God's sons became mighty men. Which is making me believe that, remember we said God is an entity? When he's impregnating his sons, they're going to be of some sort of entity as well, which is now impregnating the daughters, which are the earth creatures, and they are begetting these specialized mighty one children. Now, how does this tie into, and why is this important? Think of the whole RH factor. Think about the golden blood terms of 21andMe. Why are they looking for lineages of people of today? Are they looking for the lineage that goes straight back to certain groups, certain people? Because why is Cush begetting Nimrod the mighty one? Which makes me wonder, was Cush or Nimrod a different melding of species? In other words, it wasn't the humans, it's mixing whatever God is with a human becomes a mighty one. Because I just named a whole bunch of sons, and this is the first time they're saying that he begat Nimrod and became a mighty one of earth. So now is Nimrod now a new delineation of type of mighty humans, mighty ones, mighty whatever, and now we're creating a new line. Let me go on, let me see. It may not answer it, but these are questions that I have. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Okay, so now we're switching terms again. We're talking about God. God was the one that that blessed them. Now we're back to Lord. So he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore he said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. I have no idea what this stuff means. All they're doing is lineage and landmarks. I could write these landmarks down, but once again, they're creating cities and they're creating the land masses of everywhere. So, I just dropped my pen. Hold on, guys. I dropped my pen. I need my pen. Okay. All right. So now, out of that land went forth Ashur, and building Nevaeh, the city of Rehoboth, and Calah. And Rezin between Navaveh and Calah, the same is the great city. So right now, this is all geography. We're doing a genealogy lesson, we're doing a family tree lesson, we're doing a geography lesson. So I'm just going to read through this quickly. We're on chapter 10, verse 13. And Mizraim begat Ludum, and Alamum, and Laman, and Naphatuim. Oh, wow, I am butchering these names. And Patathurism, and Kalasuhim, out of whom came Philistim, and Capitorum. Okay. And Canath begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and Jezebuth, and Amarote, and Guragigasite, and the Havati, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadi, and the Zamarti, and the Mammoth, and afterward were the families of the Canaan spread abroad. So now we are literally talking about different groups of families. These are the family trees. Each person separates into a different family tree, and they're just going to keep multiplying. And the border of Canaanites from Sidon, thou comes to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Amah, and Zebadim, and even unto Lasha. So now we have a whole bunch of cities now. And we know what's going to happen to Sodom and Gomorrah, but let's go on. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So now, at this point, I'm going to put this in the notes. We're learning different languages. There's different tongues, different languages. So it's the concept that people are speaking differently. Okay? They have different countries. So we're establishing that there's differences between each of these family and nations. So different countries and different nations. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, and brother of Japhet, the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And the children of Aram were Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. And Ariphax begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for his days was the earth divided, and his brother was named Joktan. Joktan became Alamaded, and Shaped, and Halazmazavet, and Jaraz, and Haladaraman, and Uzal, and Elkal, and Obal, and Abadalim, Shabai, and Ophir, and Halavah, and Jodabah. All these were the sons of Joktan. Okay, yeah, this is a wholly another language for me. Okay, their dwelling was from Misha, as thou goes into Sephar, the mouth of the east. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. These are the families and sons of Noah, after the generations in their nations. And by these were the nations divided in earth after the flood. So basically, the entire earth's lineage comes from 8 people, which would be Noah, his sons, and their wives. Noah, Noah's wives, Noah's sons, and their wives. Those were the 8 people that started everything, because supposedly everything was destroyed in the flood. Every living thing was destroyed. So there were no other lineages. So that would mean Adam's lineage is gone. Cain Abel's lineage is gone. So now here's a question that I have, is from this point, was Cain still alive? And the reason I say that was my understanding, which it didn't necessarily say, but my understanding was that he cursed Cain to be a homeless vagabond, to be homeless dweller, but it doesn't necessarily say when or if he died. And if it did, I missed it, but I'll have to reread. Did Cain die? Did Cain die? Or if so, did the flood kill him? Or did he remain immortal? So I'm curious if later on, if there is any mention of what happened to Cain. All right, we will continue on. Chapter 11. I'm on a roll today. Normally I've only been doing two chapters. I'm doing a lot more, but then again, it's a weekend. I'm not doing anything, and Chris is on call, so who knows when he's coming back. My guess is he's going to be really busy today because it's a beautiful day and he probably has lots to do. Anyway, we're going to start chapter 11. Okay. And the whole earth was of one language and one speech. Okay, right off the bat, that's contradicting, because just above, they were talking about different languages, different tongues, different country. Now they're saying the whole earth was of one language, one speech. Okay, contradiction, that doesn't make sense to me. But let me write that down. So one language, one speech. But like I said above, they spoke to, in chapter 10, verse 20, these are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, after their countries, and in their nations. So that's telling me, and it says once again in number 31, after their families, after their tongues, after their lands, after their nations. So, and then it says in 32, the nations divided. So they're saying in chapter 10 that there's differences between them, but then chapter 11, the very first thing is one language. All right, maybe I'm jumping the gun. Let's see what it says. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain of land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Okay, so they're moving around, and they said to one another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach into heaven, and let us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Okay, so I'm assuming this is going to be the Tower of Babel. I could be wrong, but I'm just jumping ahead. So right now, they are in the city of Shinar, land of Shinar. So land of Shinar, they want to build a tower that reaches heaven. Now, remember, let's talk about the concept of heaven for just a minute. This is the reason they invented double doors, going in, out, in, out. They want to build a tower that reaches heaven. Now, heaven was defined by that covering that separated, well, the firmament was, but there was the waters above, the waters below. The earth was in this protective covering. When the heavens opened up, that covering was no longer protecting. That's when the flood happened. So heavens is not necessarily that high. Heavens would be the point at which the sky touches the waters from above. Now, I say this in a very careful way because this is where some of the conspiracy theories comes in about space. There is a whole school of people, and like I said, this is not necessarily my belief, but I'm just looking at different perspectives. There is a whole school of people that do not believe that above the Earth's atmosphere is space. Instead, they believe that what that is, the blue sky, is actually water, and we're literally in a fishbowl. So we're in a fishbowl, and if you break through the firmament, break through the fishbowl, it's going to be all water. And the Bible constantly talks about God separating waters from above and the waters from below. When the heavens opened up, the waters caved in, so the fishbowl was filled up completely with water. So now they want to build a tower up to heaven. So they want to touch the top of the sky before they get to the water. So let's go on, because now we just switched from God. We're talking about Lord now. So this may be important. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of the mill... Okay, so I'm going to write that down. So Lord, actually in a physical form, is coming down. So Lord comes down to see city. And I'm going to put Babel, because I think that's what we're talking about, but we haven't named it yet. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they all have one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So I guess he's giving them free rein to do whatever they want. He says, and this is 11:7. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they might not understand another speech. Okay, so now, here's where this is interesting. So the Lord is visiting this city. He's looking all around and says, hey, wait a minute. They all speak the same language. They're all talking the same. He's like, so now he's going to be like, I guess, the trickster. He says, let's go down, confound their language that they may not understand. So now the Lord, because remember I said, Lord, when they talk about the Lord, has a much different personality than when they talk about God. And that's why I think in the Bible, Lord and God are two separate entities. Because God is all about good, and the Lord is all about creating mischief and curses and chaos and war. And so now the Lord is the one that wants to create different languages to confuse people. What does this sound like? That sounds a little creepy. Okay. So the Lord scattered them abroad from then upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build a city. Therefore is the name of Babel. So yes, they're talking about the Tower of Babel. Okay. Because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from there did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. So yeah, so the Lord is once again at his old trickster ways, that he's creating mischief, and he just created different languages, and I'll write that down. He also scattered people. Okay. For me, that is a very different point of view than what God said, because God was the one who said he's never going to do this again. But the Lord is the one that's saying, okay, well, they all know the same language. Let's go in there and confuse them and make them that they can't understand each other. See where we're getting at? Two separate views. Everybody keeps telling me that the Lord is God, the God is Lord. So then this is telling me that God has multiple personalities, and each personality is at war with each other, because there was one side of God that's really bad and another side of God that's good, and they're at war with each other. That's why I'm thinking is the whole concept of God, because you have God, and Lord, and we haven't gotten up to the other honorifics, but so far these three honorifics, completely different beings. Okay, so now these are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Shem lived and begat Arphaxad 5 years. And Arphaxad lived 35 years and begat Salah. I'm not writing these names down. I'm not writing these numbers down. Originally, I was going to start looking at the numerology or the gematria of these things. It's getting to the point that there's going to be way too many numbers. So I'm just going to read, just for the sake that this is the family tree. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber. Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg. And Eber lived and begat Peleg 430 years and begat the sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years. And see, this to me is headache repetition. I don't know how it is about you, but I read this and it's like, no wonder people don't want to read this. But it's like, okay, and Peleg lived after... See, I almost want to set... Well, I guess they had to do it in written form. I almost want to actually see a family tree. I want to see all the bubbles with the lines and say, okay, this... And maybe that would look a little easier, but it's in words. Revu lived to 230 years and begat Surug, and Revu lived after he begat Surug. And Surug lived 30 years and begat Nahar. And Surug lived after he begat Nahar for 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahar lived 29 years and begat Terah. And Nahar lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. Oh my God, this is a mouthful. I'm sorry. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abraham, Nahar, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran began Lot. And Haran died before his father. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran. So now we're starting to talk about the marriage lineations, and I guess this is where some of the lines are going to mix up, because the wives and daughters that they're taking to marry. Okay. Terah took Abraham his son, Lot the son of Haran. Abram's wife went forth with them from of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And in the days of Taran were 205 years. Okay, so for me personally, aside from the family tree aspect, the only thing that we have is that once again, the Lord is creating mischief and cursing by giving different languages to people so that they cannot understand each other. Very different attitude than from what God does. And that's why I think Lord and God are two separate beings. But we'll continue because I keep saying this, and as I'm reading this, and like I said, this first time I'm reading, they're telling me, but it's the same person. I don't understand why the same being has such opposing views with himself. So please, definitely, if you guys have any thoughts on that, put it in the chat. I would love to hear what you have to say. All right, so we are on chapter 12 now. Chapter 12. Okay. Now the Lord said unto Abraham, get thee out of thy country. Okay, we're talking about the Lord now. So Lord told to get thee out of the country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house onto a land that I will show thee. Okay, so the Lord now wants Abraham. Oh, I'm sorry, I said it's Abram. Wants Abram to go out onto a land. All right. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee. I still want to know what blessing means. And make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them and bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in these shall all families of the earth be blessed. Okay, once again, every time they use the word bless, it sounds like they're talking about procreation. Because he's saying he wants the family of earth to be blessed. He wants them to continue. He wants them to multiply. So my question is the verb blessed a euphemism for having sex with these people to impregnate the woman to spread the seed? That could be quite an interesting, disturbing view on it. But the question is, once again, is blessing sex? Is that what they're talking about? Okay. Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years when he departed at Haran. Okay, so once again, we're still talking about lineage. Abram took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all the substance they had gathered, and the souls they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth into the land of Canaan, and land of Canaan where they came. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sichem and the plain of Moreh, and Canaanite was then of the land. Okay, so once again, they're moving out, they're going into their own thing. We're now expanding the geography of the Bible, and like the earth is getting defined by land masses. All right. Once again, we're talking about the Lord now. So we're not talking God, Lord. The Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. And there built an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. So now the Lord is saying, I'm going to give you this land, but I want you to build an altar onto the Lord. So build an altar onto myself, or is there now another person or another entity called the Lord, and he wants you to build something for him? That's something to think about. So basically, I'm going to go with the selfish thing, because Lord right now sounds very selfish, considering how he keeps manipulating things. So I'm going to say that he wants him to build an altar for himself. And he removed from thence onto the mountains east of Bethel, and pitched a tent. having Bethel on the west, Hai on the east, and there he built an altar unto the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. And there was a famine in the land. And Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass that he was near to enter Egypt, that he said unto Sarah his wife, Behold, I know thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, they will say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. All right, I'm going to stop for a minute. So basically he's saying if that he shows up in Egypt, they're going to kill him. But because his wife is beautiful, they're going to save the wife. But my question is, why did they want to kill him? Maybe I missed something, but let's just see. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may well be for my sake, and my Lord shall live because of thee. Okay, so now he's saying, and I guess this is where lying comes in, lie to them that you are my sister. Now, why would that be different? Why would it matter whether she says, okay, question. Why should it matter if she's a wife versus a sister? Wife versus sister. I'm just curious. All right, let me read that again. I'm just going to go back. This is chapter 12, verse 11. I'm just going back. And it came to pass, he came near to enter Egypt, and he sent unto Sarah his wife, Behold, I know thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when Egyptians say to thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray, thou art my sister, that may well be a favor for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. Okay, so I might have missed something. So in other words, if he goes to Egypt as man and wife, they are going to kill him and take his wife. However, if he goes into Egypt and says, This is my sister, not the wife, this is my sister, then both of them will stay alive. I guess that's the rule. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egypts beheld the woman, that she was fair. The princess of the Pharaoh saw her, and commanded her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's home. Okay, we're getting more into the whole intimacy of the Bible. Let's see what it has to say. And he entreated Abram well for her sake, and he had sleep, he had oxen, he had asses, he had manservants, maidservants, and she asses and camels. Okay, obviously we're talking about donkeys. But, so from my understanding, and let me get this, I'm going to stop for a minute. So they go into Egypt. He doesn't say this is his wife. He says it's his sister. So because they're not married, which, okay, this would make sense. Okay, now I'm understanding it. Because she's fair, meaning she's a virgin, even though she's the wife. So what does that mean? They never consummated, or they're lying her virginal status? I don't know. But if she is a virgin and she has a brother, then both of them can stay alive because she's fair. So that means he never consummated their marriage, but she is, quote, fair. The Pharaoh is now inviting her in because I guess the Pharaoh wants the virginal beauty for himself. All right, let's see what it says. And during this time, while she's with the Pharaoh, they're being treated very well. They're given gifts, they're given oxen, they're given sheep, they're given a place, servants to serve them. So I guess they're actually welcomed into this land. Okay, so let's see what happens, what the Pharaoh does. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Okay, so now, once again, the Lord is doing something bad. It's not God, it's the Lord. The Lord is plaguing the house because of Abram's wife. Okay, so let me write that. Lord plaguing Pharaoh's house because of Abram's wife. So now, I think this is going back to customs, and I could be misinterpreting what the custom is. So if he were to come to Egypt as husband and wife, they were going to kill him. Because he came as brother and sister, they honored him, but the Lord knew the truth, came in and says, I'm going to punish the Pharaoh. But why is he plaguing the Pharaoh and not necessarily plaguing the other guy? Why isn't Abram? Why is he plaguing Pharaoh and not plaguing Abram for lying about what their status is? Okay, I'm going to keep reading, but that's my question. And Pharaoh called unto Abram and said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Why did you not tell me that she was thy wife? Okay, so basically, yes. So now the Pharaoh had relationship with his wife. The Lord punished the Pharaoh. Okay, so it's not his fault. It was, okay, so that's interesting. So let me write that down. So now, Abram, okay, so Sarah and Abram both lied to the Pharaoh. Oh, doggy's home. Chris is home. I might be ending this short, guys, but let me finish because I just want to finish this. Okay, so, hi, honey. I'm live, so if you want to join me, we can.
Hi.
He says hi. The only thing I would say is change your shirt if you want to join live. No? Okay, whatever. Well, you know what I mean if you want to come on.
Yeah.
I am, just to tell you where we are on Genesis chapter 13, and we're talking just when Abraham goes into Egypt. Abram goes to Egypt with his wife, lies to the Pharaoh that this is not his wife, this is actually his sister. And then the Lord is punishing him because the Pharaoh had relationships with the wife, thinking it was the sister. The Bible is getting scandalous. I mean, this right here, this can be turned into a drama, like a soap opera, and be like, so yeah, that's what happened. Okay, so that's why Lord was angry. But remember, Lord was angry. Didn't say God was angry, Lord was angry. And Lord, as of right now, he's the one that's been doing all the punishments. So anyway, so he says, what is it that thou hast done unto me? Why did you not tell me that she was thy wife? Why said that she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me as a wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her, go away. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him that they had sent him away and all that they had. Okay, so now, and that's the end of chapter 12. So let me just sum up chapter 12. So you have Abram and his wife go into Egypt, pretend to be brothers and sisters, lie to the Pharaoh. They were given gifts, they were given servants, they were given a whole welcome. But then come to find out, when the Pharaoh lays with his wife, that they lied and deceived the Pharaoh. But the Pharaoh was punished by the Lord. So instead of the Lord punishing Abram, he punished the Pharaoh by sending a plague to Egypt. And basically the Pharaoh is angry now. You lied to me. You told me this was your sister. So now I want both of you out of here. Take your stuff and go. That is what happened in chapter 13. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this here because we started chapter 8. We went all the way to chapter 13. So tomorrow we'll start with chapter 14. That's if I'm on tomorrow. I'll definitely be on Monday. But we're going to start with chapter 14. And if anybody is on YouTube, I will be saving this and uploading this to YouTube as well, so you can see the live. Always remember, give some love, give some double taps to that screen, and I hope everyone has a great day. Until tomorrow.